Hey there, my name is Charles Sedgley. What I'm going to be going over today is behavior in basketball. Now first, before I go over this, basketball has a lot of behaviors, a lot of extrinsic, intrinsic, outside behaviors, and inside behaviors. Things you do outside of the basketball court, outside of the game, as well as things you do inside of the game, inside the weight room, inside of the gym, and even inside of your head. You know, what type of mental game are you playing? Are you having a battle with yourself, or are you having a battle with another teammate or another player, for instance? So, topics of discussion we're going to go over today. Variables in the game of basketball. There are many variables that come into account. Some of them you can record, some of them you can't. Some variables you can record is statistical, so how many points you average, how many rebounds you average, how many defensive stops, or how many steals you get, etc. Some things you can't record, how many charges you've taken. For instance, I'm a player myself. My weight getting on the court was taking a charge. But a charge also has the same equivalent as a steal. The opposing team turns over the ball, and then we get possession, and then we go the other way. That's exactly what a steal is as well. So why isn't a charge that way? But also a charge is one of the key factors in changing the tempo of a game. It makes offensive players not want to go into the paint as much if they have someone who knows how to take charges correctly. And that definitely changes the format of opposing teams and how they want to play. Operant conditioning in basketball. Operant conditioning is how to decrease or increase some behaviors using certain stimuli, whether it's respondent, positive reinforcement, negative reinforcement, and a couple different types of punishment as well that we will go over. As well as we're going to go over analysis and modification. After this first part of the video, I'm actually going to show you a real live game of my team playing, and we're also going to break it down and see how we can improve and change and modify our behavior. First, the variables in a basketball game. There's two ways you can look at it. Like I said, there's recorded and unrecorded. And how I look at it is concrete, doesn't change, abstract, where it doesn't change as well too, but you can't record it. You know, it's a natural occurrence that you can't really record, such as energy, bench involvement. Of course, you would record, the bench getting hype on the bench, in the game, clapping and cheering for their teammates, but it's not written down, it's not documented. So our statistical analysis is our concrete version of that. This type of analysis was recorded and documented by a person seeing what is happening and immediately plugging in the data. So this is a stat keeper in the game of basketball. Sometimes this is also an announcer as well too, going over a lineup, as well as commentators when they are watching the game. They see certain things about a player, and they also comment about the game, certain calls, certain plays, and they also talk about players as well too. Sources include like stat sheet, a shot chart. Where are you getting your shots in that game? Sometimes you might be playing a zone and you find a lot of your shots in the corner. Sometimes you're playing a man defense and you have the advantage of having a big player, so you're oversized. So what do? You're going to get shots around the rim, right? If you're typically a guard team, you might have more perimeter shots. So you might have to work around the perimeter and get long range shots versus trying to go into the trees and try to shoot up something that you may not make. Also, other things that you can get statistical analysis as well too is coaches. After every game, they have reports. They talk to the coaches, they talk to key players in that game, and they ask, what was the key in winning today? They also ask, losing players as well too. Typically not at this level, but they also ask, what were the things that you didn't do well, and what were the key reasons of why you lost? Other components of when this can happen, coaches do it at halftime. They do it in a timeout, and they got to do it very quickly because they got to get ready for game time. Now, abstract analysis. This is the stuff that is unrecorded. This type of analysis goes over things that cannot and are not documented. Examples, like I said in the beginning, taking charges. Bench involvement. How hype is the bench really getting for their team? Are they being supportive, or are they worried about playing time and not being involved in the game, not being a part of the win, when really that's what you signed up for? Anytime you are on a team, you are in this as a whole. There's actually a quote that you can go over. A wolf A pack is only as strongest as its weakest wolf. What that means, your weakest link needs to be just as strong as your leader, even mentally, right? So if you don't have that, then you're bringing down the team, and it almost becomes a cancer and degrades the emotion and the mentality of the team. So bench involvement is very important. Support staff, by the trainers, by the coaches, and by the fans and even players. Fans are there to support you, hype up for the team. Trainers are there to help you build your body, get you into game-ready form so that you can perform on the coach. And then the coach, once you're in the correct physicality you want to be, they're going to put you in different places, different spots that you've been training for, so that your weaknesses are hidden and your strengths are promoted and used very well. And the physical and mental readiness as well too. You can't really record someone's emotions going into a game. Like I said, a lot of things happen outside of the court. Some players may be in relationships and they might be going through a tough time. Some players might have issues with relatives, health issues. And again, some players might have, a knee that's always been hurting them since high school. They never properly treated it ready. So, that day they might have been too busy, may not have been able to prehab it or rehab it so that they can be 100%. If you think about a scale, where are you at on each 3 levels, emotionally, mentally, and physically? You want to make those as high as you can possible before a game. And as well as energy. That is a key component in everything. Energy you can't even really document or record, because what is energy? For me, it's the culmination of everything. It includes the fans, the coaches, the trainers, and all the players. How much are you really giving out from yourself? How much are you outputting? What is your performance? As you can see here, we have one of our own. These are actually pictures from our own games as well too. So statistical analysis, this is being recorded, as well too, the abstract, the unrecorded. As you can see here, the fans are getting hyped for the game. There was probably a nice play that happened. So types of stimuli in the game of basketball. We have conditioned and we have unconditioned. So what this means, conditioned, it's planned out, it's practiced, it's put there for a reason, and it's time specific. So it's used at certain times to create a reaction. That being said, we start off with practice. You don't just go into a basketball game without preparing for it. So what's the best way of preparing? Practice, right? So drills that mimic a basketball game. This is backdoor cuts. This is contested jumpers. This is set plays with a defense. This is rebounding techniques, and this is skills training. So this is, for instance, point guards, they're going to be passing the ball, they're going to be shooting the ball, they're going to do a lot of ball handling work. As far as bigs, they're going to work on position, movement, and footwork, as well as being strong under the paint, so that when they can go for a rebound or when they get the ball, they can make a strong post move, drop step, little fade jumper, little jump hook, etc. Now, as training goes, you can't just walk up to the basketball court and do everything in there, right? You can always do push-ups in there. You can always be working hard with the basketball, but you need to get into the weight room. You need to be training, resistance training with dumbbells, bands, core exercises, sprints, stability exercises, and med ball exercises. Many of these trainings do different types of things that can mimic to the basketball court to make you quicker, faster, stronger, as well as more hand-eye coordinated. A lot of these things that you can do, you can also modify so that you really got to think about what you're doing, because if you don't do it right, you're not going to get the results. For instance, there's some explosive techniques that you need the exact perfect form, or you're not going to be able to move that weight. For instance, that would be a power clean, a squat, a deadlift, a jerk. You need to mimic everything that's going to be on the basketball court. And unconditioned stimuli. These are things that are natural, but you can't really plan for them. They just happen immediately, and you have to initially react to them. So that's why you need to be mentally prepared. You need to think about, if this happens, this is what I'm going to do, right? But of course, sometimes you can't really expect an injury. You can't change the call when a referee makes a bad call. He might have seen something that you didn't, but he's going to make his call how he saw it, right? And once they make the call, there's no redo. They can't go over into their camera like the NFL, see the play. You can't challenge a play, which actually might be a great idea in the game of basketball. You might be able to challenge a play at least a couple times during the game, because one play can change it all. Like I said, it might be a charge, but the other version is a dunk as well too. But like I said, if you take a charge and you really believe it was a charge, but they call a blocking foul, that's a huge game changer, huge. And again, like I said, player injury. Of course, you never want to see it, even on either team. I'd rather play a team when they have all their guys, not when they have a player injured. That's a key player, because really it's not a real win to me. Of course, it is a win, which I will never discredit. But winning when they have everyone they have, and then you win the game as well, it's a big impact. It's a big motivational factor, and that's doing it the right way as well too. It's not a form of cheating, but it's a form of settling. Now, surprised by the other team as well too. Some teams do have secret weapons. I will go over that as well too at some point. What this means is they have things that they haven't promoted, documented, and that you haven't seen yet, that you aren't aware of. This could be new plays. Most teams, most coaches that have been, most coaches with the same teams for a while, they have the same system, so it's expected. Of course, they have counters off of it, but they're leveled counters. So if this happens, they're going to do this. Whether if it's a zone, they're always going to send a guy going baseline each side, strong side of the ball. If they're playing man, they're always going to pass and screen away, or pass and cut, and someone's going to replace behind them. We will actually break that down as well too in the film. But for instance, those are things you really can't plan for, and hence is new plays, things you haven't seen before. This is why it's good to talk during the halftime, during the timeouts, and have correct and proper leadership, so that you know how to deal with these things. And also a new player. Sometimes you come back second semester. I know in college, there's been players that I've played second semester that I'd never seen them the first semester, and they were actually a decent player. And we couldn't prepare for them. We couldn't scout them and see what their strengths and weaknesses were. Could he go to his left hand? Can he shoot the ball? How strong is he going into the paint? Is he looking for himself, or is he more of a pass first? Different coaching plan of action than used before. And again, like I said, some coaches do flip it up every now and then, determining whether it is a lineup issue or not, or they may have a new coach. I know a few schools, they've have a few new coaches, and their play style is completely different. Some teams do want to run the ball up and down the court, but some teams want to slow it down a little bit, run some set plays, and try to outsmart you rather than outwork you. So operant conditioning and stimuli. Positive reinforcement is to increase behavior by adding a stimuli. So examples of this, we'll go over offense and defense, as well as motivating factors as well too. First, offense. If you want to become a better shooter, get a better shooting percentage, you're going to practice, and you're going to practice often, and you're going to practice your shooting, and you're going to mimic shots that you get in a game. Typically, I hang out in the corner sometimes, and I come off of the corner or the wing. I'm not going to be in the middle of the court all the time. So what I'm going to do is practice in working out of my corner, coming off the screens, and shooting a quick, nice jumper. And I'm also a little bit shorter as well too, so what I need to focus off is really getting space and also getting the shot off quick. Okay, now we're going to go over defense. We're going to go over team defense and player defense. Team defense, you need to practice rotations. So in this instance, you want to increase the effectiveness of your defense. So you're going to practice rotations, switching, hedging, and communication. As a defensive player, you don't ever want a player to go by you, but if they do, no game is ever perfect, and there also is matchups as well too that are different. A guard is most likely going to go by a big or a forward, just because he's smaller and he's quicker. But on the vice versa of that, big or a forward is going to be able to post up a little guard much easier than he would big on big. So practicing all this rotation, switching, and hedging, and communication is key too. You really got to communicate where you're going with your teammates in real time, so that you're not rotating to the wrong person and you actually help your teammates. You're there for your teammates. Player defense, defensive slide drills and footwork drills. So defensive slides, you really want to keep your player in front of you without fouling, so that when he tries to go and by, you step right in front of him and then not let him proceed going to the rim. And as well as footwork drills too. What angle are they working at? When you close out, you want to have choppy steps and high hands so that you're ready for him to move, but also your hands are high to contest the jumper if he does shoot it. And as well as motivating factors, the next thing, it comes from coaches, observers, and also recruiters. Coaches, they need to teach technique. As you can see, we have a coach right here in this picture. He's pointing to a player and says he needs to do certain things, and hopefully he's saying why. The reasoning is huge on this. Why do we help on help side so that he can't go to the rim? Why does there have to be a secondary rotation, a secondary defense, so that if that player does go by and he kicks it, someone is going to be there rather than making that one player do all the work, all the running. Also, showing examples. You can see right here in these two bottom pictures that they're showing you how to do defensive slides. They're showing you the meaning of why you need team defense and why you need good individual defense as well. Next thing, we got observers, fans, mentors, and significant others. I know some players, they play better when their parents are around, some play better when they're not around. Also having a lot of fans in the game as well too, that typically has brought the best out of me. I have more support group. Even if I mess up, I know there's people telling me to pick my head up and giving me a lot of positive encouragement. So that would be, again, positive reinforcement. They're adding these comments, adding this hype to make me play better, become more effective. Let's see, recruiters. Players wanting to go to the next level to the next level to increase their effectiveness in drills. So what they're doing, for instance, in a few practices, we had a college coach come look at us. I realized that we are much more hyped during the game, much more effective, much more organized, and a much more learning-like. Everything that coach was saying, we were fully responsive, making sure we were doing everything exactly right. And I've seen the attention span become a little bit longer. Not that this is bad, because if you wasn't there, we're not working as hard. But this is almost a test, and you always want to do on a test, right? So that's why you practice all the time, so that when the test comes, when that recruiter comes, you can really get after it and show them what you got. Next one, we have in operant conditioning, we have negative reinforcement by increasing behavior, by removing a stimuli. So what this means is, coach taking away something or the program taking away something so that we can increase a certain behavior. For instance, I know at the beginning of my season, my coach inhibited phone usage in the gym because he was noticing at the beginning of the season a lot of people were on their phones. Before practice, possibly during a water break. It may have been because of the new people. You're not just going to walk over to someone random and start having a random conversation, about something. But I think taking this away, it increased our communication with each other, so that we're going to talk to each other rather just sit in silence. And as well too, we became more focused and involved in practice, not worrying about who was texting us, not worrying about if we heard a notification, who it was, what it was, not worried about social media. Because of this, it makes you more mentally ready and emotionally stable. When you come to practice, you're supposed to be there 15 minutes before practice, which means that you need to be prepared. If you're just sitting there in the gym, you're not getting mentally ready. Once you get yourself in there for a few minutes, 10, 15 minutes, maybe in a half hour, you're getting shots up. You're getting ready for practice. You're thinking things through your head, how practice is going to go, how you're feeling. The second form of negative reinforcement is a player is removed from a game for making continuous mistakes, typically the same mistake twice. If a team's effectiveness improves by removing a player who is a liability. This means that if you have, whether it's a point guard, whether it's a player on the court who really isn't shooting well and also has a quick trigger, not really trying to get good looks, but also is letting their man go by and score on them multiple times, is not making the right pass, has it intercepted a few times, that player becomes a liability. And we'll also go down in one of the slides as well too, what positive effectiveness is and what negative effectiveness is. as well, and it is also called positive performance and negative performance. So the stimuli for the player being removed was the minutes being played. Minutes is huge. You want to be, minutes is when you're playing, you're actually in the game. The behavior was poor performance. He was turning the ball over, letting his defender get by him, and he wasn't really shooting the ball well, not trying to work it around, had a bit of a quick trigger. The reinforcement was being subbed out. And the result, better overall team effectiveness. Now, that only happens if the player that is subbing in for them is a complementary player. The key is complementary player. You know, is he making the right things? And it also, is he a positive player, a positive performance type player? Now, these next two things, we're going to go over punishment. There's positive punishment and negative punishment. Positive adds a stimuli to decrease a behavior, and negative punishment removes a stimuli to decrease a behavior. So first, we'll go over the positive punishment. So let's say players are not focused nor working hard during a practice, or even a game, okay? They're going to be running up and down the court until the point is proven. Coach is going to stop all the drills, stop all the skills training, and you're just going to keep running up and down until he feels like it. I know this has happened before, because when you're running up and down, sure, you're working on your cardio, that is a good thing, but you're not really working on the game. You should be doing this cardio outside of the gym. You're only given typically an hour and a half to 2 hours a day as a whole unit, as a whole team. So you really got to take advantage of that. So what they're doing is taking away, what they're doing is adding this, adding the stimuli, which is making the drill of running up and down the court, adding that pain, because once you do it for so long, you know, you get pretty tired and you get exhausted. And then until the point is proven, once it is, you're going to have a lot more focus, a lot more awareness during the game. As well, too, another thing where coaches I know I've had used is scolding and yelling at a player for not correctly performing when just taught. This tends to be a bit embarrassing, because when you're with your players, most times, most teams, they're buddies, they're friends. When you get called out in front of your friends by, you know, a higher authority, it's a bit embarrassing and you don't want to see it. It's a bit belittling. Now, this is a really good technique, because if that player does get embarrassed and really cares about what the coach is saying, he's not going to do it again, and he will focus. And especially when he's just taught it, you're expected to mirror and reflect what you just were taught. Now, the player, again, we'll go over about getting subbed out. A player getting subbed out of the game for making the same mistake twice. For instance, let's say an intercepted pass, right? The result is a player does not make that same pass again when in a similar situation. If he gets subbed out, or he gets scolded, he's adding that yelling so that he decreases turning the ball over. So we're going to do a breakdown of a couple games right now before we really get into it. We played 2 games, and these are the 2 games I'm going to break down. The third one will be a separate video as well, too. So we played Vermont Tech. We lost this game, and for the reason, now there's many reasons why we didn't lose the game, which is why we will do the breakdown as well, too, and show you how it's done. But these were 2 home games, and scoring, you got to score buckets. At the end of the day, you got to have more points than the other team. I know that's a blatantly a blatant point, but you really got to just have more points than the other team. As simple as that. Right? So we have, in the first game against Vermont Tech that we lost, we had a few players, and we're just going to go over the starters as well, too, because starters mostly take the duration of the game. They take most of the game, and mostly they're the biggest priority and the biggest impact on the game. So the starters that we had, one had 26 points, one had 18 points, one had 9 points, one had 0 points, and one had 9 points. So only 2 players were in the double digits for scoring, and we had lost that game. Now, when we played Machias, we won this game. Now, when we won this game, we had players with 23 points, 14 points, 17 points, 7 points, and 11 points. that is 4 players being in the double digits as far as scoring. We scored much more that game, and of course, than the other team, and we won. But also, like I said, we had 4 players in the starting lineup that were in the double digits. And I also had a rule of thumb too as well too. If we have starters 4 out of 5, maybe 3 out of 5 in double digits, we're gonna win the game. If we have less than 2 or less than 3 players that are in the starting lineup that have less than double digit scoring, then that needs to be fixed, because it will result into a loss. Now the modification, we're going to talk about player efficiency and team efficiency. The reason why we have this coming after talking about starters is because a player may be playing well. You saw in one of the games we had a player score 23 points, 25 points. Yes, that's a lot of points. That player played very well, but it doesn't mean you're going to win the game. In the team efficiency point, we didn't have anyone score that high of points, but it was more spread out, but it was also more of a total points. What this means is, when a starter is not performing well, maybe it's just not his day. That's one of the unconditioned stimuli that you need to take into account. Maybe he's just not shooting well. He can't really find the rim that day. A modification to deal with this is to sub it out with a bench player that has reflective play style, so that the game plan is not drastically changed, but the effectiveness remains. So example, guards sub out for other guards, and then forwards sub out for other forwards. Now coaches always switch it up as well too. Some they like to go more guards than bigs. Some like to keep it real big if they're having a rebounding issue. But it's really typically the same game plan throughout. And also please note, a player may be having a scoring game but lacks good defense. We're going to talk about positive and negative performance now as well. So a player can still negatively affect the team's efficiency. For example, if a player scored 12 points and a half, but their matchup scored 16 points and a half, then that player has a -4 rating, a -4 effectiveness and performance, which means is the other guy scored more than you. Like I said, it's a game of buckets. You got to score more than the other team. His player scored more than him, and that puts him in a lower. It puts him in the negatives as far as efficiency and performance goes. Now, analysis and modification steps. You need to be sure that team efficiency outweighs player efficiency. All players remaining in the game need to be playing at a positive so that the team can win the game and win as a result. Energy. We got conditioned stimuli and we got unconditioned stimuli. Conditioned stimuli, planned out, time specific, controlled by prior planning. Fans showing up and going wild. A light show for hyping up the crowd and intimidation. Secret weapon, 6-man. We will go over this as well too. Bench involvement and encouragement. This is stuff that you can plan, you can implement at proper times for intimidation, for an advantage, and for an upper hand. Unconditioned stimuli, again, player injury, the referee making a bad call, a long road trip before the game. Sometimes when you sit in a bus for 3 hours, your legs get cramped up, and then you only got about 20 minutes to warm up. That's very tough to do. And as far as eating on the road too, sometimes you don't always have the best options. And also, key players perform poorly. Sometimes you can't always expect a player to score 30 points a game. Sometimes it might just be his off day. Sometimes it might be a matchup. His defender is really on him, and or even the defense is gravitating towards him, making sure he doesn't make his regular moves he does. Conditioned stimuli. Again, we got the light show right here. This is in our own gym as well too. And then we have 6-man right here on the bench. Typically, they sit right next to the assistant coaches and all the coaches so that they really get a grasp of the game and what they're going in for. And they can see it through the coach's eyes and their eyes, so that when they come in, they know what the flow of the game is. They see some things that some players on the court don't, and then they go in and do it. Typically, I've been in this position as well too. I think it's one of the most key components in being a successful basketball team across the span of a game and across the span of a season. Sometimes when that fresh player comes off the bench, a lot of these people that started, they're starting to get tired. So that is definitely an advantage once you got fresh legs coming off. Then we got wild fans, home encouragement, advancement 2, everyone getting loud, getting on the other team when they make a bad play, just yelling real loud, making jokes, things like that. Appropriate, of course. Then we got bench involvement and encouragement. When a player makes a dunk, gets a 3, you're always clapping your hands, you're cheering them on no matter what. And even when they don't make a great play, or they turn the ball over, or they make a bad play, not the right play, etc., they're still supporting you. They're still supporting you. They're not shaking their head being like, I should be in there, I wouldn't have done that, because you really never know. Behavior in basketball. Many variables and stimuli and modification are used to promote being a better individual and a better team. Through various responses to decrease bad behaviors and increase good behaviors to win a basketball game. Both recorded and unrecorded analysis needs to take place for optimal performance and maximizing potential. Improved behavior means improved results. The next video we're going to go over about is a quick breakdown of a game that we went over. This will take about 5 minutes.